Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new Chinese Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank, the Death Chariot 112. Now this is the Halloween version of the 112, which this skin for this 112 is actually pretty decent. I mean, I don't mind this, to be fair. On the whole, it looks really cool, I think, to be honest. This is probably the best one out of the three that they've released in terms, well, for the newer Halloween tanks. It looks pretty damn cool. It is a 112, but they've changed some of the stats, taken away the preferential matchmaking, and made it its sort of own unique tank, but it sees tier 10s instead of the preferential matchmaking that the 112 has. Most of the stats that have changed are for this gun. The armour profile is exactly the same as the 112. On the whole, it's an okay tank. It's nothing to shout about, really. I just think it's sort of okay. It's got quite a few things that are a bit poor and quite a few things that are quite nice. So on the whole, it's okay. It has the awakened ability when you're in the Halloween mode of having like these skulls that are fired like 80 gems, which is pretty cool, and could be pretty fun to use, to be honest. But we've not got the Halloween mode yet, so we don't know. Yeah, on the whole, the Death Chariot isn't too bad. I kind of like it. I like how the armour holds up, just like the 112, and then this big slapping gun slaps. Although I do feel like you could probably buy the Skoda T56, which is the Czech Tier 8 heavy tank premium, and you could get the same sort of playstyle, really. And you can have a double shot autoloader or a single shot, and the gun performs very similarly to that, really, although it just has better velocity on the Czech Tier 8 heavy. So let's get into the stats of the Death Chariot. Well, the Death Chariot has some, like I say, some decent stats and some big drawbacks. So it's got 580 horsepower with a 35 km/h top speed. The 12.61 horsepower per ton helps you to get up to that 35 km/h top speed. It does hit the 35 km/h pretty decently, but on the whole, the mobility of this tank does feel a little bit sluggish and can be a right pain at times. And that is down to this 24 degrees a second hull rotation. It's pretty slow. If you've got tanks going round you, the 24 degrees a second is pretty slow and can be just a little bit painful for when you're having to try and turn around to go somewhere else. 1500 HP, sorry, not horsepower. It's just because it's HP. 1500 HP is pretty decent for a Tier 8 heavy. It's what a lot get. They get in that 15 to 1600 range. 2.3 on the soft terrain resistance, 1.2 and 1.1. The soft terrain resistance is pretty poor, which helps the tank in the way it feels sluggish. But these two are pretty standard. If that was a little bit better, it'd be a little bit nicer. I mean, you could run off-road driving, but there's little things on this tank that you want to be running different crew skills for, essentially. Camo rating, well, you don't care about the camo rating. It is a heavy tank after all. And you get 380 meters view range, which is decent. It's just a little bit above that 370. 370 is poor at Tier 8. 380 is decent. If you put optics on it and have situational awareness, born leader, that sort of thing, you can have a good time. You'll get that view range up to a decent amount. So 380 isn't the worst for a heavy tank, especially a Russian knockoff in the Chinese versions, right? They generally don't have the best view ranges. So that's, you know, pretty decent for the tank. One thing that is terrible is the turret traverse. You get a 20 degrees a second turret traverse, which is 4 degrees a second slower than your hull traverse. That can be really frustratingly painful, and it means that if you turn the tank while trying to turn the turret, yeah, your turret turns slower than your hull, so the turret will just sort of feel like it locks in place at times, and it's really slow. You're going to be wanting to run rapid aim just to make the turret traverse that little bit better. It's a real drawback for the tank, that. You've got a 1.18 meters dispersion accuracy while during turret rotation, which isn't the worst. It's not the best. It feels okay though when you do turn the turret. You get a 6 degrees of gun depression, which is actually decent for a Russian knockoff tank. I mean, most tend to have 5 degrees of gun depression, so 6 isn't the worst. Although obviously it's not like having 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, 8, 9, and 10 is absolutely brilliant. Having 7 is decent. 6 is on the edge of, it's not great, but it's not bad. It does help you a little bit better on ridgelines to have the 6 degrees of gun depression. It makes the tank a little bit more accessible on those ridgelines, but again, it's still not that good, really. And 17 degrees of elevation is more than you'll ever need, really. In terms of reload time, this gun has a 15-second reload, which is pretty slow. 4 rounds a minute rate of fire. It's not the quickest. I think you get that down to about 12 seconds. We'll see when we put all the crew stats in and stuff like that. I wish it was just a little bit faster. Just a little bit faster. Because a lot of all the drawbacks on this tank make this reload feel, yeah, painful. 0.42 accuracy is also not great. But again, it could be worse. It could be like the original 112's accuracy at 100 meters, which is 0.46, which is very, very painful. And the 3-second aim time is, for this kind of gun, not that bad. It could be like the 3.4 seconds of the standard 112 or a lot of Russian heavies, but it could also be just a little bit nicer, and it does feel painful when you're having to aim in. This 0.42 accuracy as well, with the aim time, feels horrific over range, and naturally that fits the tank's playstyle because the tank is meant to be an up-close, in-your-face brawler. And the armour is pretty decent for that, so that's quite a nice factor for the tank. But just be aware that this gun is derpy at times, and it's really irritating for that. You get 45 rounds, which is, yeah, decent ammo capacity. You get AP as a standard round, Heat as a premium round, and HE as your third ammo choice. There you go. You got 208 pen on your standard AP round. You got 250 Heat pen and 61 HE pen. 208 pen is not that great in today's tier 8 meta. A lot of the tanks are starting to push 220 pen, so 208 pen does feel limiting at times when you're facing tanks, especially when you're facing tier 8s or tier 9s and 10s. Can feel very limiting and can be really irritating. And 250 heat pen is, well, 250 heat pen isn't the worst. That's, you know, it's not gonna limit you in penning things, but there's still a lot of things that you do struggle to pen with the 250 heat pen when you're facing tier 9s and 10s, and it can be really frustrating to use. Added into the fact that it's got 800 meters second shell velocity on the AP and 640 on the heat, which is absolutely atrocious. Yeah, over distance, this shell velocity is awful, and you do feel it. It's really not nice to use. 800 meters a second on the AP isn't the worst, but I do wish it was more like 1,000. Just, it's not great. I wish the heat was more like 800. 640 meters a second on the heat rounds is awful. It makes you feel like you miss more than you actually do. It's really awkward to use in that regard. The shell velocity just isn't great. And 250 pen, heat pen, I do wish it was more like 270 for facing those tier 10s and tier 9s, because the 250 will limit you against quite a few tanks you're going to face. And being heat, the 208 pen isn't going to be enough for people's fronts. And for some tanks, 250 isn't going to be just quite enough for the fronts. And you're going to want to get around the side to shoot them. And if you're shooting something on the side like an E100 or an IS-7, 250 heat pen is not going to go through because it will just get absorbed by spaced armour. But you do have 460 alpha. 460 absolutely slaps, and that's a big strength of the tank. 460 alpha is lovely. The amount of times I've rolled for nearly 500, and the lowest rolls I've had is like 420, 430. It's beautiful. It really does slap. When you're top tier, this tank is wonderful. When you're bottom tier, tank's okay. It could be better, but it could be far worse. It can compete with that alpha because it helps you trade a little bit, and like I said, the armor's pretty decent. And like I said, with the armor, it's actually the same as the standard 112. All the armor on this tank is exactly the same as the 112. As you can see here, the turret front is like, 300 at the best, with the 240. The upper plate is 140 on the lower, and 120 on the upper. If we were to have a quick look at the 112's armor model, as you can see, it's exactly the same. So yeah, so that's why we're going to have a quick look at Tanks GG, which is the PC armor model, because they have the exact same armor model for the 112 as we do. So it gives you a little bit more of an accurate representation of what this tank can be like. So if we're facing head on, yeah, 300 meters, 300 millimeters of armor, 292 on the upper plate. It's not that bad. Pretty nice, actually, to be honest. And then you've got 220 millimeters of effective on the upper plate. Like I say, the armor on this tank is pretty damn nice. If you're facing anything with like 260, 270 pen, that's where it could go wrong and have absolute pain. Obviously, that was firing heat, so the no normalization does hurt it a little bit. Yeah, as soon as you're starting to face things that have, about like 240, 250, well, about 260 basically. If you're facing things with 260, 270 pen, they're going to start going through your upper plate about a 50-50 chance. And the lower plate obviously can get butchered. You do have cupola weak spots here as well, which you just got to be careful of. But if you start to angle the tank sort of like this when you're driving at people, the upper plate becomes really solid and the lower plate becomes decent and really well angled as well. So people can ricochet off these. It's also a side-scraping god. If you're side-scraping, it's really, really good at it. And I've had really good times playing this tank side-scraping. I'd say the armour is a massive plus point for the 112. And it's pretty damn decent. And even when you're facing tier 10s, you can ricochet a lot. I have ricocheted quite a lot. And obviously the turret front is really nice as well. So if you are hull down, if you're on a ridgeline like you're on Prokhorovka, which you're going to see in a minute, the tank will bounce a lot and it's really nice. It's really nice for slapping, like I say. Yeah, it's decent overall. So in terms of equipment, I run the advanced loader, which is the gun rammer, gun stabilizer, and optics. So I run optics so I can get my view range up as high as possible, and so I don't get out spotted as much, especially when you get those bigger maps. Vertical stabilizer so I can get the accuracy as good as possible. And a gun rammer, obviously, to make the DPM 10% better, because you really want to do that with the reload being so long. So you get with that, if we put on the normal consumables. And then we go to the crew. So with the crew, I put it in the 112 for now, so we're going to just move it across to the Death Chariot. So with this crew on the Death Chariot, I do run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Trap Mechanic, Rapid Aim, Steady Aim, Snapshot, and Run and Gun. These gun perks to make this gun as good as possible, because the gun is troll and pretty terrible at times. So you want to make this gun as accurate as you possibly can. Rapid Aim, 10% increase the turret traverse and gun rotation speed, because the turret traverse is awful. You want to make the turret traverse as good as you can, because it is shocking. And then these 5 perks are what you tend to take on everything generally, because you want to make everything just that little bit better with your reload. You want Sixth Sense to know when you're spotted, Born Leader so you can make everything just 10% better, Situational Awareness, and Trap Mechanic obviously to get your tracks back on, because you are going to be brawling. You want to get your tracks back up. So that's the crew that I run, and with those stuff, all the equipment and all the crew in the Death Chariot, these are the sort of stats that you can get it up to. So you get it up to 24.33 degrees a second on the turret traverse, so you're just about matching your hull rotation speed, which is why we run Rapid Aim, and why I wouldn't probably run traction system on this tank, because you want to make this turret traverse just a little bit better than the hull rotation, just to make it feel a little bit nicer. The reload we get down to 10.94, and bear in mind, obviously you can get that a little bit lower when you activate food. So it's probably more like, what, 10.2 or something like that. 10.94 is still slow, but for 460 alpha, it can feel just a little bit more acceptable. 0.27 accuracy, which isn't that bad, to be fair, but it still does feel derpy, and I think that's a lot of that is down to this shell velocity, to be perfectly honest. I mean, you get 2.5k DPM, which is solid for a tier 8 heavy, so yeah, really, that's okay. And a 2.76 aim time with all the crew skills and stuff like that, which, again, could be better, but it's decent. And obviously you get up to a 486 meters view range, which is great. Take it, because that helps you just not get out spotted. So yeah, on the whole, this Death Chariot is not a bad tank. It's not the best tank in the universe. It's not the, oh my god, this thing's OP. It's just pretty solid. It slaps. When it's top tier, it can have really great games, because the armour is absolutely fantastic in a top tier game, and the gun absolutely slaps, and you don't have to worry about your penetration. In a bottom tier game and against tier 9s, the armour doesn't hold up quite as well, but you can still maximise it in ways like side scraping and stuff like that, and it can still be really good in that regard. But you can still ricochet shots with it, which is decent. And this gun does slap, so it really does help in trading. Thing is, you've got to hit the weak spots, which can be a pain with the derpy-ass gun, and the penetration can be a limiting drawback. So you just got to be careful with that. But on the whole, the Death Chariot is a pretty decent tank, and hopefully its awakened mode, or its awakened version of the tank for the Halloween mode will be pretty fun to play. So yeah, that's the Death Chariot. We're now going to go into the gameplay, so you get to see that, and you can watch that gameplay and think, oh, this guy's talking a load of crap, it looks great, or, okay, no, I don't like the looks of this tank, I don't like the looks of the drawbacks, that sort of thing. It's up to you to make your own mind up, so I'll see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the Death Chariot 112, and this first replay is sort of the more average game I had in the tank. It's sort of get yourself stuck into a brawl, do a bit of damage, bounce a few shots, then have to go fight at distance, miss those shots at distance because it's a bit of a pain, and then get killed by artillery because, yeah, that happens a lot, and it is a heavy tank, so that's just the unfortunate death of the tank. And yeah, on the whole, the Death Chariot's model isn't actually that bad. I quite like the look of the Death Chariot. It's just got that nice, sleek look about it, and sort of the patterns on the tank look pretty cool with the black skin. It's just pretty cool. I really like the look of the Death Chariot. Compare that to the Arachnid, which is disgusting, and the Asterion, which isn't the worst. It's not best looking tank in the universe, but it's also just not the worst. I don't mind the Asterion that much. The Arachnid is absolutely horrific, and yeah, those two tanks will have their own separate tank reviews coming soon. And yeah, it's not that bad. I really quite like the look of it. So yeah, the game hasn't started off the best so far for the Death Chariot. Although 528, woof, that's quite the roll. Crossing into this position where you can just see how sort of a bit sluggish and slow the mobility of the tank is. We're not getting slapped by artillery for nearly, what is it, 900 odd damage. Great, thanks artillery, it's a good start to the game. But we hit one shot, 524 again. Okay, let's say when this gun hits, it absolutely slaps, and it's really satisfying for that. But yeah, we hit a nice shot on the move on the Pershing, which completely disregards the fact that I said that the gun handling on this tank is a bit poor. But, I mean, I think you've also seen the derpy gun handling with the shot on the 50TP prototype, because we aimed for his side in the middle area, and we actually hit his upper plate, and luckily hit the weak spot on the upper plate, and it went in. But, yeah, we've got the perfect scenario for us at the minute, though, and that is we've got ourselves stuck into a nice little brawl on this corner. We can just keep slapping shots in. That's a brick. We don't see bricks all that often, which is quite surprising. We get a nice shot into his side, and we're just going to keep basically pulling forward, popping a shot, pulling back. Now this Concept 1B is all alone over here, so it's like, well, we're going to slap a shot in. That shell tried its best to miss there, and we end up low rolling for 427. That's probably one of the lower rolls I've had in this tank, which left him on 1 HP. So that was a guaranteed kill, which unfortunately didn't quite happen. But, you know, we bounced a little bit when we bounced the Concept coming out at a different angle. We've, you know, managed to get 2.4k damage so far. And really, that is the perfect little fight for the Death Chariot. Everything's in front of you. You can get it to bounce off of your angled armour as much as possible, and you can slap them with the gun. And like I say, when we're even that close, you could see that the gun was trying to miss, which is a bit of pain. But fortunately enough, it went where we wanted it to. So, right here, we'll look at the shot for the T28 prop, but can't quite get him because he's pulled back around the ridgeline. But this Conqueror, who is really, that's a really stock Conqueror, pulls out, and we can just see his lower plate. 510. Like I say, when you can keep this gun working over someone and just wait for this reload to go in for 10.9 seconds, you can keep slapping people and doing some significant damage. I mean, we roll for 510, then we roll for 416, which is, yeah, very low. But it's the alpha, right? If we were, I'm not going to say 112 because that's got pref matchmaking, but if we were anything with a 122mm gun, which is what this gun is, and had 400 alpha or 390, we would not be hitting for anywhere near as hard. We'd be hitting in that 300 to 400 range. So yeah, this, like I say, this alpha is really nice and slaps. That shot there on the T20 prop, though, that looked like it should have hit. The shell looked like it was destined for the side of that guy's turret, but we didn't even get a bounce notification, nothing. It just missed. Really unfortunate, but it is what it is. We're up to 3.3k damage with a bit of assistance, and then we end up getting missed for a shot by the SDRV 1030. And it's like, okay, SDRV 1030, if I was to load heat, I could pen that guy every time, because the heat would just go straight through his angled armour. But we've got a 122mm gun, so we can just hit him in a lot of spots and still pen it. So what we're going to do is we're going to aim up the shot, aiming, and then the shot goes nowhere near where we aimed. That looked like it went outside the reticle. Yeah, this gun, like I say, when you fire at distance is pain. So we stop again, we're aiming for that top end of his tank, and it goes really low and hits the floor. And it's at this point, it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to drive at him. Hopefully he'll miss or he'll bounce. He pens us, and we get shut down by artillery, because that's just the way it goes. When faced with the victory, we came third on the team, 3.3k damage, 1371 base XP, a bit of assistance in the 1400 Confederate medal, second class. And yeah, like I say, 1371 base XP. So that's definitely the more average game I've had in the Death Chariot, and it kind of summed up the games I've been having in it, to be fair, where it's like, get yourself to a position, get into a nice little brawl, get some good damage out, bounce a few shots here and there, and then as soon as it gets out of the time where you need to be in a brawl and you have to start fighting at longer distances and more open fields and more just generally in more open areas, the things at longer distance start to hit you and pen you in your weak spots a lot easier than you can actually hit and pen them, and artillery just has its wicked way with you, which is an unfortunate thing for most tanks, to be fair, but that is, it's definitely what I've been suffering with the Death Chariot 112. So we're on to the second game. This one we are top tier, and we are on Mines, which has returned to tier 8 and below, which is decent. Mines and Ghost Town. If you play tier 8 or below, you can see Mines and Ghost Town again, which is something that they brought in with the patch last week, I think, which wasn't really mentioned. Which is, yeah, it's decent. More maps in the map rotation, which is what you want. And with Mines, obviously, the most important place on Mines is the hill. If you win the hill, you pretty much win the game. They've got one light tank go up against a medium tank, but it is the tier 6 wheelie boy, so I have no faith in him actually winning the hill, which is good because our medium tank should kill it. We just poke around this corner, get a shot into the HMH 51, and this is where 6 degrees of gun depression is a little bit nicer than 5, because if we had 5, we definitely would be really struggling to work this position, like really struggling to work this position. With 6, we can just about work it, especially if we get ourselves into a better position, because that first position there we had was a little bit awkward and probably not the right play. But right here, like I say, you can get yourself full down, use the 6 degrees of gun depression, and all they can see is the upper part of my upper plate and my turret armour at a weird angle, which means they're all going to just keep bouncing. So we kept our eye on that light tank that was running around, but you know what? Can't shoot it at the minute, so we get a nice shot slapped into the Inferno, and like I say, this gun slaps so hard. So we're reloaded, it's like, well, I'm just going to slap another shell into the HMH 51. And like I say, when this gun slaps so hard, if you can just keep trading like this, keep yourself in a position where you can get back, reload, pull forward, get another shot into someone, bounce the shots, get back and reload again, it's really great for that. So seeing this light tank is really dodging everyone, it's like, well, I'm waiting for the reload. It's like, well, okay, goodbye, Mr. Little Pest of a light tank that's clearly frustrating everyone. We get rid of him. We're up to 2.4k damage and 464 assistance. I was just keeping an eye on where that Comet had gone, because he was in that corner, but he's actually somewhere else now. So it's like, right, okay. The time is upon me to move forward. We get a nice shot slapped into the back of the CF-52 Lease, which is 407, another low roll. Okay, maybe the 420 odd wasn't the lowest I've rolled in this tank. Low roll a little bit, but it's nice because like that Comet has 405 hit points. It's a 50-50 to kill him if you have 400 alpha, but with 460, he's just going to die, which is great. And yeah, now I'm thinking, right, okay, this Sturmpanzer is something I don't want to face because he could hurt me, but we do have lots of things to shoot on our right. So you know what, we're going to pull around this corner and shut down this Inferno. We don't really pull around the most armor effective, and he manages to get a shot into our lower plate, which is fine. We've still got a lot of health, and their team is dying. Looking for a shot at the lower plate of the Sturmpanzer, but we just reload a little bit too slow to get the shell in. Unfortunately, the Reach manages to slap a shot into us, firing premium, I think. We were just angled a little bit too much. We just wait for the shell, the aim circle to come in. And unfortunately, it just hits the floor. Most of the aim circle was on his turret, which we would have penned with our 208 pen, but unfortunately, we just hit the floor with the derpy gun handling. It is what it is. Now the MX and 445s pull around the corner. We just make sure the gun's aimed in a decent amount so that it doesn't derp on us. We get the shot into him. And now there's only one tank left, and it is this poor little Fury in the corner. It's been a rip-roaring little game for the Death Chariot. It showed the sort of little perfect scenario it can be in when you are top tier as well. It is absolutely fantastic for that because the armor is great and it slaps and you don't have to worry about the pen. So we finished the game with the first class, the high caliber, the sniper medal, 898 base XP, 4k damage, 2k assistance and 4 kills. So really nice game for the Death Chariot. It is one of those tanks that when it is top tier, it is glorious because the armor works like it should. because it is the 112, and the armor on the 112 is good for being top tier. But the gun actually is usable, and you can slap people with a really great alpha. You don't have to worry as much about the pen. You just have to worry about the accuracy and the poorer mobility, and the distance you're having to fight people with as well, to be fair. But you can have a good time. And even against tier 9s, you can have a pretty decent time as well, because the armour still does hold up. And even against tier 10s, like you're going to see in this replay, we are against tier 10s. The armour does hold up, especially if you hold down, because the turret armour is great. Although, obviously, if people do aim, they can hit the cupolas, although they can be a little bit awkward to hit. You can have a great time, but when you're against tier 10s, this is where the gun handling, having to aim for the weak spots, and the penetration can really let you down, because obviously there's going to be quite a fair few tanks that you are just not going to be able to pen, and it'll be really frustrating in that way. So, yeah, we're against tier 10s, we're on Prokhorovka, and there is no artillery, so thank God we're not going to die to the Sky Pigs today. And unfortunately, we started off pretty badly. We're coming to this position over here, and their M48 120mm managed to poke right the way over the ridgeline and get a shot into our side. So we're already down 400 hit points, which is not the best start in the universe, but it is what it is. When we're on this ridgeline, we see the 705A on our right is taking most of the hits. So while he's the one that's distracting the enemy team essentially with its hit points, decide, you know what, I'm going to poke over and shut down the SU-130PM, because the SU-130PM is obviously a very strong gun, and it's got pretty damn good camo. So if he manages to get stealthed up again, it's going to not be a good time for us. And they don't have too many TDs, so it's, you know, something we just want to eliminate. We come right over on the top of the ridgeline, and we get a shot at the QL, to think of what the tank was there. Yeah, the WZ-111 QL. Unfortunately, we end up bouncing off, well, we hit his tracks at distance, and we don't get to pen him. And then we bounce the 268 version 5 as well. And yeah, 303 pen bouncing off upper plate as we're coming back. Like I said, the armour on this tank ain't too bad. So this is where, again, 6 degrees of gun depression is nice. We poke over to get a shot into the lower plate of the 50 TP, but 208 pen is not enough for the 50 TP's lower plate, which is its weak spot. We just don't have the pen for it. So we are loading the 250 heat pen. We aim the shot in and slap it in. 403 is a low roll again. Kind of annoying. But you never know with some of the heavy tanks. Some of the heavy tanks might be running stuff like advanced armour or armour angling. You never know, so with the rolls and that. Unfortunately, we end up ricocheting there. Because he's at distance, we don't quite know where the shot's gone. Is what it is, but he does get tracked in the open, so we're just going to make sure the gun is aimed in. We slap the shot in again, 436. I'm fully convinced that guy's running something like armour angling, which is reducing our alpha. And that 50 TP is gone. So we're just being careful here, because we do keep getting detected as we're pulling over. We're unspotted right now, so we pull over, aim the shot at the side armour of the 268 version 5, and unfortunately our 250 heat pen just isn't enough to go through that guy's side of turret, which is, yeah, sad times. We're just being careful of the 60 TP on the right, and again, we're detected, so we're just waiting before we decide to do anything that little bit too aggressive. Looking for a shot of the 268 version 5, can't quite see it. Then the ISM at the back gets spotted up. Again, a tank that we're not really going to pen with 208 standard pen. But fortunately, because we've still got the heat loader from firing at the 50 TP, that goes straight through the upper plate or lower plate, one of the two, of the ISM. Because the ISM is one of those sad tanks where when people are firing standard, they will struggle, well, less than 240 pen, they'll struggle to pen it in the upper or lower plate. But as soon as they fire premium, it just butters the tank, unfortunately for it. So yeah, so far we've got 1100 assistance with 1500 damage, and it's like, okay, you know what? We have all these TDs at the back along the 2 line. We have the heavy tank and the light tank in the bowl that are taking attention. We've won the hill. We've won the other side of the map. So you know what? I'm going to try and change the angle on the enemy team and start trying to get side shots at the guys that are at E3-4, because currently in their positions when they're getting hulled down and poking on the ridgeline, with my gun depression, I just can't get a shot at them and I can't pen them, which is kind of annoying. And you are seeing that the tank for that repositioning plate is a little bit slow. I do wish it was just that little bit quicker, but it is what it is. So as we're coming over, it's like, okay, we could get a shot at the 268. We could try and get a shot at the Emil. Unfortunately, the 268 just gets unspotted as we're coming over. Really bad timing on that. But this 60 TP is in the open, same as the M48A5. So, you know what? We're going to slap a shot at the side of the 60 TP, and he was firing heat, and he ricochets off our upper plate, which is really nice. I say the armor on this tank is really solid, and if you keep wiggling and keep angling, you can bounce quite a few shots with it, and you will be surprised at how much you can bounce with it as well, which is, you know, nice. Unfortunately, 6 degrees of gun depression is just failing us a little bit here. We try and get a shot into the side of the Emil one there, but unfortunately the shot just goes low and hits the ground. Was also poorly aimed as well. We did kind of just end up aiming at the ground in the end. We're just looking for a shot at the EBR 90 there. We do manage to get the shot straight in, and then we bounce 2 shots off our turret armor as well, which is nice. I think we bounced the Emil one and possibly the M48 that's at the back. We're just trying to look for a shot at that guy. We can't quite see it. We're just going to have to change our angle up a little bit, see if we can work the gun depression that little bit more. There we go. We've got the gun depression, and we slap the shot right into the lower plate of that M48 120mm, and we shut him down. Unfortunately, the Emil one drives over and shuts down our friend, but he's driven right over the ridgeline, which means we could try and finish. We would have finished him off if he'd survived there with the 140 finishing him off there. It was a bit of an aggressive play. Unfortunately, our guys that have gone down the 7 line really aren't doing very well against their 268 and the other tank that's in there. We're just looking for a shot at the side turret of the 60 TP. We can't quite get it. We try and slap the AP shell in anyway as he was turning his turret. It was never going to go in. So I'm not quite sure why we even bothered there. And we're just having to be just a little bit careful. I want to pop over and get a shot at this M48 pattern, but unfortunately he did start to focus on us because he actually shut down the guy that was looking at him. So now we have his attention, which is not what we wanted. We wanted his attention to be drawn elsewhere. The EBR 90 over there gets spotted, so we try and lead the shot, but we just didn't lead it enough. The shot velocity let us down while we were guiding our shell there, and we ended up missing that light tank. We're still, again, looking for a shot at this M48. I am being careful, though, because, like I say, there is the 268 that we knew was down at B6 under the bridge, and that could be deadly and could be curtains for us as well, because if he's firing heat, he has, like, nearly, what, 400 pen? That's going to hurt, and he can pen us really easily. This 430U gets spotted coming over there, and I'm like thinking, is this guy just going to come YOLO over the ridge and give us nice shots into his lower plate, or is he going to play it smart? And so far, he is playing it smart, which means he's staying over the ridge line and he's not being too aggressive. At the minute, with the position I'm in, I can't really do anything because I've not quite got the gun depression to get the shots at the M48 in that, and I don't want to give myself to the 430U or anything that's camping at the back. So I'm just moving closer to the 430U, so it makes it difficult for him to get a shot. And if I could try and get over and get a shot at the M48 pattern as he overstretches if he does. But he doesn't, and I decide, you know what? I am going to try and reposition. But actually, the M48 did poke up, but he seems to be a decent player because he just pulls back as soon as he realises that I'm looking at him. So yeah, I've decided, you know what, I'm going to change my angle. I'm going to move over and I'm going to get under the bridge and try and get a shot up at the 430U. And if I can't get a shot up at the 430U, we can maybe move out, and from that position we can actually move out and get shots at him and pull back behind the bridge, use the ridge lines and stay safe ourselves. Also, we have the hit points to take at least 2 shots from that guy, and he pokes out. And he's firing heat, right? So we've got, this is 340 heat pen that this bloke has. So just pay attention to the armor on it. We're keeping ourselves angled. We end up giving our side armor. Again, we know he's got heat loaded. So it's, you know, if he shoots our spaced armor, there's every chance that the shell gets resolved, which is what happened with the first shell. Unfortunately, we ended up hitting his upper plate when we had his whole lower plate, and we ended up bouncing. Then we get a nice shot into his side. He ricochets off our upper plate with heat. Again, we're angling our armor extremely, so it's a harder shot for him to pen, and also giving him more of our side armor because, like I said, the heat will bounce, and he has bounced again off our upper plate. And that's if this is 340 heat pen. You've got to note that we are angling our armor as effectively as we can to make sure that it's as good as possible. And he is struggling to pen us. So we're poking over to see if we could get a cheeky shot into his side, and it's like, oh no, that's the 268. Nope, 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 nope. Not doing that. We are not doing that. We're not going to pull over in front of the 268. We've blocked 5.7k damage so far, and that, you know, kind of shows just how decent the armor is on this tank, and you can rely on it. You just have to do your best to accentuate it and to make it better. The Object 430U has changed his positioning, which is bad for our TD, but good for us because he's going to struggle to get shots at us. and we can obviously push ourselves under his gun line because he does only have 5 degrees of gun depression. And actually, the TD, the 268, has moved all the way to F6. So it's like, okay, I'm going to try and pull out and get a shot in, but actually, 268 version 5 ends up hitting him for 908. Wow, okay, and shuts him down. We're just going to try and pull out and see if we can get a shot at this 430U. We end up getting a shot into his side on the ridge. Like I said, we're using our gun depression and that, and he ends up ricocheting off our upper plate again while he's still spamming heat. But now he is actually coming for us, and it's like, no, Mr. 430U. Right now, I do not want to die. It's not the way I want to play it. So we're going to pull back behind this ridge line. Hopefully, he'll do something silly like pull all the way out. But unfortunately, he does play a little bit smarter and stays back. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and bait a shot from him. We're going to try and see if we can get him to just fire his gun. And if he does, great. We can pull out and try and get a good shot into him. He ends up firing. It's like, well, hello, let me just aim at your lower plate. And the shell goes underneath him and just tracks him. Or just track damage. And we end up missing that shot. That's where the gun can be derpy. But the 268 version 5 finishes him off. And we finish the game with the victory. With top of our team, 2 kills, 3.6k damage, 1922 base XP, 1300 assistance, 6 and a bit K blocked, first class, the steel wall. A nice game for the Death Chariot, and that game against tier 10s really showed that the armor is pretty solid, and if you angle it and keep angling and stuff like that and use it hull down, the armor is really, really quite nice for the tank, and it is a big strength for the tank as well as the big slapping alpha. It's just that the mobility isn't the best, and the gun handling can be a bit derpy. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.